Hello, 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 everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. This is Fiberstrike 95. I hope you're all doing well. Happy Sunday, everyone. And today we're here with another one of our national park series. Today we're going to be covering the part 33 of 63. We're about over the halfway point now. We're now covering Redwood National and State Parks here in Northwest California. This really cool little national park, of course, is famous for its protection of Old Grove Red Coast Redwood Forest, hence the name. But it actually contains several major both national and state parks as well, and apparently it covers around 139,000 acres of land. And it's also a UNESCO World Heritage Site too. Pretty cool stuff. So we'll talk all about it. Before we get started, I do want to say hello to everyone in chat, all the lurkers and mods. Good to have you guys here. So our flight plan is pretty simple, but we do have some really cool sights to see along the way. So we'll start here at Poole Weaverville Airport. From there, we'll climb up. We'll fly over some of the mountains of Sawtooth Mountain and Cedar Peak. Then from there, we'll take some snapshots at Mount Shasta. We'll fly around here. Then make our way west to our very first stop at Happy Camp Airport, 36 Sierra. Then from there, we'll go up west. We'll fly around to Crescent City. Then we'll fly along the coast and we'll fly over the national and state parks. We'll fly over the parks areas, of course. We'll fly around all the different state parks. And then we'll make our way to our last stop at California Redwood Airport. So that is going to be our flight. However, unlike some of our other streets, we may not be doing a bush landing here today. So I don't think we're going to do any bush lanes today. Probably because a lot of the stuff is forest that we're going to be seeing, which there really isn't going to be like some very unique landmark in this national park. So we're probably going to skip on landing bush landing today. So we'll just do some general just flying around the area. We'll go pretty low to the ground. And we'll definitely get some good scenery pics, but we're not going to do any bush lanes today. If that's all right with you guys. So we're going to go ahead and get started and get ready to get going. So we're going to go ahead and do this. There we go. So we're going to go ahead and make our way to our airport. So for the first leg, our cruising altitude for the first leg, our max altitude for this first leg will be 9,000 feet. So we'll cruise around 9,000 feet for pretty much most of it. But we could cruise 8,500 feet if we want to. So I think we're going to go 8,500 feet. Maybe we'll just stick to 9,000 for this leg. And oh yeah, this thing's already in the runway, so we're going to go ahead and take off. So here we go, guys. We're going to climb up to 9,000 feet for this one. So beautiful day here. Here's our route for this morning. We have Super Typhon. Look out, Typhon! I see you. If you guys want to join along with us, we're on the Southeast Asian server. We just took off from Oscar 54. Yeah, we're just Blizzard Insane Climb. So once we get to 9,000 feet, we'll start talking about the national park itself, the Redwood National and State Parks. That is what we're going to talk about here today. I see ya. Look at that. Yeah, this Savinor could just climb. Yeah, look at the views of the Northern California Alps. Very beautiful part of California is Northwestern California. Absolutely gorgeous region here in the state. Yeah, look at the views out here, guys. This is absolutely gorgeous views of the scenery here in this part of California. So we're going to go ahead and we're just about 7,500 feet. So here we go, guys. Finally made it. So I hope you guys are excited for this. Before we get started on our slides, I do want to cover some of the stuff that's happened in the World Cup. Yesterday's action was absolutely insane. The first games were, of course, Panama, England, and Croatia, Ghana were the first games. Group L ends with Croatia beating Ghana 2-1, and England has completely won their group, and England managed to finish with 7 points in top of their group. Then, of course, we then also had Dominican Republic and Congo, Uzbekistan, which was a win for the Congo. They now advance to the knockout. It's not only their first ever World Cup win, it's their first ever appearance in the knockout stages, which is absolutely huge for the Dominican Republic of the Congo. And Colombia topped their group against Portugal, 0-0. So big stuff. But of course, this was nothing compared to Group J. Argentina completely dominated Jordan, and even Messi got a goal afterwards. But the big game of the night was Algeria and Austria, and that was an absolutely insane match that went to the final minute. But yes, it led to an Austria goal from Kalajic to put Austria to tie with Algeria to finish the group stage. So qualifying for the group stage, of course, in terms of all of it, we finally get all the teams third place. And for third place, of course, thanks to the results, Iran is out of the tournament. Iran and South Korea are both out of the tournament, which is good riddance to Iran. And that means the 8 teams, third place teams that are qualified for the knockout phases: Dominican Republic, the Congo, Sweden, Ghana, Ecuador, Bosnia and Herzegovina, Algeria, Paraguay, and the last team on goal difference, Senegal. So definitely should be an interesting knockout phase, of course. And our knockout phase has been pretty much set, of course. Some big games, obviously. For who I think could advance to the next round, I'll have to wait and see on Monday who I'm going to pick for the for the Friday stream, of course. So yeah, look at the peaks out here to our left, guys. Cool stuff. Just really cool peaks and stuff in this part of California. So yeah, there it is, guys. These are the old Saltine. Absolutely gorgeous peaks, of course. So now we're going to move into Mount Shasta, of course. So I think this would be a good time to start finally talking about, of course, our national park. So Redwood State National Parks, of course. Redwood National State Parks is located here in Northwest California. They are actually a complex of one U.S. national park and 3 California state parks along the coast of Northern California. And these, in the combined unit, contains Redwood National Park, Del Norte Coast Redwood State Park, Jedediah Smith Redwood State Park, and Prairie Creek Redwood State Park. In the park's 109,000 acres combined preserve 45% of all remaining Oak Grove Coast redwood forest. And of course, these parks protect one of the endangered coast redwood, the tallest among the oldest and massive tree species on Earth. It also preserved 37 miles of the pristine coastline, indigenous flora, fauna, grassland prairie, cultural resources, and more. One interesting thing about this national park, of course, this thing is a UNESCO World Heritage Site. It was founded in 1980 as a UNESCO World Heritage Site. And local tribes declared this area an indigenous maritime stewardship area in 2023, protecting the park's region, coastline, and coastal waters. Really neat park. Last year, 458,000 people visited the national state parks in 2022. So pretty important stuff. Like I said, it's a pretty cool little park. It's a neat park, and definitely pretty underrated and visited. So, but yeah, there's a lot of really cool things about the Redwoods that I think a lot of people could definitely check out and visit, of course, here at the park. So, going through all of this as well. So the history of the national state parks dates back to the Native American times of the Native Americans. Modern-day Native American nations like the Yurok, Tolowa, Karuk, Chilliwack, and Wyandotte have historical ties to the region, which had various indigenous occupants for millennia. Describing diversity in an area that size probably has never been equaled anywhere else in the world, as historian David Stanner recounts that more than 30 native nations have lived in northwestern California, and at least 15 of those live around the coast. Based on an 1852 census, the Yurok was around 2,500 people, but the most connected to the park's areas were the Yurok, Chippewa, and Tolowa. And the most populous of those tribes were the Yurok people. Until the 1860s, the Chippewa lived in the middle region as well, and then the Tolowa were located near Smith River. And the Native Americans living in this area relied on the redwood trees as a construction material, and some featured the trees in their mythology. Mainly from the Chippewa, who viewed these trees as a gift from their creator. And many of them harvested the coastal redwoods to turn into planks, building material for boats, houses, and small villages, and for buildings too. So these redwoods were very important for the native tribes living in the area, of course. Historians believe that the first Europeans to visit land near what is now the parks were part of the members of the Cabrillo expedition led by Bartolome Ferrer, who explored the area during the 1500s. And in 1543, Ferrer's ship made landfall at Cape Mendocino and may have reached waters off Oregon's far north as the 43rd parallel. However, a couple other people disagreed with it. Of course, plenty of other visitors sail around the coast, but never actually set anchor here. But it wasn't until 1775 where Bruno de Heceta and Juan Francisco de la Bodega from Spain set about 10 days at the Yurok village of Tusurai, south of the parks, and then it was followed by George Vancouver and Francisco de Leza in 1793. But it wasn't until Jedediah Smith in 1828 who explored the interior of Northern California, and he explored many of the different rivers, of course. However, everything starts to change when the California Gold Rush in 1848 brought hundreds of thousands of Europeans and Americans to California, and the discovery of gold along the Trinity River brought them to the region of the parks. And that led to many conflicts with the native peoples were displaced, raped, enslaved, and massacred. By 1895, only one-third of the Yurok and one group of villages remained. By 1919, virtually all members of the Chippewa tribe had either died or assimilated to other tribes. In the Tolowa, whose numbers estimated to be under the thousands, only had a population of 1 or 20, having been nearly extinguished in massacres by the settlers between 1853 and 1855. Unbelievably tragic in so many ways. Redwood logging followed gold mining, and most of these mining companies became lumber interests. Redwood was a straight grain, making planks easy to cut, and because redwood could defy weather and does not warp, it became a very valuable commodity. Jennifer said a good team of 2 men can cut through a redwood tree about a foot of an hour with a crosscut saw until after World War II. Because wheeled vehicles cannot travel it, teams of 6 or 12 oxen transport logs to the roads as well. After the 1881 invention of the steam donkey and later success for the bull donkey, the need to fell intervening trees so donkeys could work small in the practice of clear cutting. As well. But of course, after extensive logging, conservationists, of course, and concerned citizens began to seek ways to preserve the remaining trees, which they saw being logged at an alarming rate. Stumbling blocks slowed conservation, and objections to some innovations came to the logging industry. Construction of the Redwood Highway brought roadside attractions and more visitors to the trees. Congress failed to act, and the voracious demand for lumber came with the post-World War II construction boom. Of course, organizations were formed to preserve the trees, and one of the concern about the Sequoia of Yosemite, John Muir actually founded the Sierra Club back in 1892, as well as some other state clubs have wanted to preserve this area, of course, for the redwoods. At first, in 1919, when Congress showed interest but no appreciation, National Park Service Director Stephen Maffer formed the National Park System. And yes, this park has been a big part of a lot of the environmental movement for the Redwoods. And eventually, it's been dated back since the 1920s. And in 1927, Olmsted's survey from Frederick Olmsted, he made a survey that was complete and concluded that only 3% of the state's redwoods could be preserved. And he recommended 4 redwood areas for the parks, including 3 areas that later became Prairie Creek Redwoods, Del Norte Coast Redwoods, and Jedediah Smith Redwood State Parks. A 4th became Humboldt Redwood State Park, by far the largest of the individual state parks, but not in the national park system. Now, of course, there has been attempts to bring this as a national park in 1938. The Save the Redwoods League opposed it, highlighting the division between preservationists who prefer the unembellished nature and a segment who provide recreation and playgrounds for the public. Both the League and Sierra Club wanted Redwoods National Park in the 1960s, but they supported different locations, and they were the antagonists to each other. And of course, there has been many attempts, but eventually, it became a national park. And eventually, after much considerations for the lumber companies and stuff, eventually the bill creating Redwoods National Park was signed by Lyndon B. Johnson in 1968. While the Save the Redwoods League had actually donated several parcels in 1974 and 1976. And eventually the park received even more recognition post-National Park. Is in 1980, the UN designated this area as a UNESCO World Heritage Site. And in 2023, this area is part of an Indigenous Marine Stewardship Area as well. So that concludes the history of Redwoods National Park. So that concludes our history of Redwoods National and State Parks here at the park. So we have quite a bit of our stuff going on here. So I hope you guys enjoyed the history of it. So ahead of us is Mount Shasta. Mount Shasta is actually at 14,000 feet. It's the 2nd highest peak here in the Cascades, behind Mount Rainier, and the 5th highest mountain summit in the state of California. It is the most voluminous stratovolcano in the volcanic arc. Pretty cool stuff. People have climbed this peak before. It runs mainly through April to late October, and it's popular for backcountry skiing. But of course, it's erupted an average of 800 years. So pretty neat little stuff. Mount Shasta. We'll get a good viewpoint of her as we fly closer, obviously. So yeah, we got some really cool stuff. So we're going to get close to the Shasta soon. So in terms of other stuff going on, obviously, as well, So, Mount Shasta. Really cool stuff, guys. So, we got quite a bit of interesting stuff here. Once we get around here, we'll talk more about the park. So, we'll talk more about this area once we get past Mount Shasta, of course. So, here she is. So, I hope you guys have had a good weekend so far. I hope your all's weekend has been great. I mean, I'm still waiting for the Fokker F100 to come to Sim Market. I'm still waiting for that because I want to fly it. I want to show you guys that stream. Of course, our next national park in the series will be Arches National Park in beautiful northeast Utah. It will be the second to last of Utah's 5 national parks, and it will also be our first national park post-World Update. So, we'll definitely check it out, and also in the Discord, I'll also link to you guys, and I'll link to you guys as well about which national parks have got updated officially from their website. So those are the main ones we'll be doing a redo. A redux. It won't be nearly as long, it'll be more immediate. So here it is, guys, Mount Shasta. So, Mount Shasta. Big peak. No need to visit here today, so we're just gonna go ahead and so. So we're going to go ahead and start turning left. So we'll get start to our next slides. Yeah, beautiful Mount Shasta. So we're going to make our way over to our next stop. So we'll continue on this way. We see a little bit of a small fleet. This is Black Boot, by the way. This is the natural landmark known as Black Boot. So we're making our way over in this area, of course. So, so we'll make our way over to our next stop. So let's go ahead and get started with their next sort of slides and some sort of our stuff at this leg, of course. Let's talk about more about the Redwoods for a bit. For the park management, Redwood National Park is directly managed by the National Park Service from its office in Crescent City, California. The three state parks that are along with it are managed by the California Department of Parks and Recreations, and it coordinates with tribal leaders as the park contains land and village sites belonging to groups including the Yurok and Tolowa. National Park Service manages about 1,400 acres of federal parkland that lies within the Yurok Indian Reservation. Now, the National Park Management oversees many details aside from the redwoods and organic species that represent the park boundaries, and they regulate areas that are off limits to motor vehicles, boats, drones, horses, pets, and even bicycles. In addition, the park management establishes limitations on camping, campfire, food storage, and backcountry use, as well as necessary permits. When opened in 1969, the national park only had 6 permanent employees. Nowadays, it has over 96 permanent and 52 temporary staff members in the combined National Park Service thing as well. In 2021, the combined Redwood National State Parks have around 1.18 million visitors. So, pretty interesting park. Like I said, 2 different managements. The national park is for the NPS. The 3 state parks along with it are by the California Department of Parks and Recreation. So pretty interesting stuff. To learn about how this park is managed, how these combined parks are managed, of course. So pretty cool stuff, of course. Cool stuff to know about that. Um, Now, of course, the whole centerpiece of this park and what makes the national park a thing, of course, is gotta be the coastal redwoods. And this is the main thing at the park. This is the coastal redwoods. It's the whole reason this national park even exists. But their species name is Sequoia sempervirens. This redwood is a very important part of the national park. Discovered in 2006 in an unpublished location, the tallest living tree is a coastal redwood tree named Hyperion, which is around 380 feet above the ground, of course. And for many people, thought, um, of course, coastal redwoods live around 500 to 700 years. A few have been even documented to live as long as 2,000 years. And redwood trees develop enormous limbs that accumulate deep organic soils from which new tree-sized redwood trunks emerge, and which plants called the epiphytes can grow. Mats of these ferns are well above ground are home to invertebrates, mollusks, earthworms, and salamanders. Now, redwoods prefer a lot of sheltered slopes, and they thrive on moist, flat ground along rivers below 1,000 feet elevation. And redwoods have existed on the coast of Northern California for at least 20 million years and are related to tree species that existed 160 million years ago in the Jurassic era. About 96% of the world's old growth coast redwood forests have been logged, and almost half of it remains here at the Redwood National State Parks. As for the trees themselves, these trees have been a long time, of course. Um, and of course, one of the really cool things about coastal redwoods, of course, is that these coastal redwoods actually have pest and pathogen resistance due to the fact they have terpenoids and tannic acid in its leaves, root, bark, and wood. And they also have adaptations for forest fires too, thanks to the thick fibrous bark is extremely fire resistant. So that's what makes it so popular for a lot of loggers. But there's plenty of other unique flora here in the park. A coastal redwood tends to dominate most places, in places that it likes, but often can be found together with other types of trees and flora. Mainly, Coast Douglas fir are among the most popular. Closer to the ocean, you have red alder, as it grows in the place of the saltwater intolerant redwoods. And the tallest known Sitka spruce grows into the parks as well, and they can grow over 330 feet tall. In terms of other sort of trees and stuff, there's the Tamarack, Pacific Madrone, Bigleaf Maple, and California Laurel trees. The understory contains mainly huckleberry and snowberry in there, as well as the California rhododendron and azalea are mainly flowering shrubs. And in the Prairie Creeks Redwood State Park, Fern Canyon is a well-known ravine that's about 50 feet deep with walls covered completely in ferns. And some of these ancestors can date back to 325 million years ago. Which is pretty impressive, though, of course. So who won the Red Bull? Oh, the Austrian Grand Prix is won by none other than George Russell won it. His first win since the Australian Grand Prix for George Russell. Verstappen got second in the Red Bull Ring. Then Antonelli got third. Piastri fourth. Hamilton fifth. Yeah, absolutely big win for Red Bull, of course. So pretty cool stuff. The floor here is pretty unique. So right here along with us to our left is the Klamath National Forest in Boot Valley area. Really cool stuff. The scenery here in this part of California is insanely impressive. So let's see. Let me see how many horses I got. 1, 2, 4, 4 of them. 2, 3, 4. 4 more slides. So I think we'll stop at Fauna as our last slide for this leg. So for our last slide of this leg, we'll talk about the fauna of the fauna living in the national and state parks. And there's a wide variety of ecosystems in the park: seacoast, river, prairie, and densely forest zones, offering refuge for numerous rare and endangered species. About 66 species of land mammals have been documented, including the black bear, coyote, cougar, bobcat, beaver, river otter, and black-tailed deer. The most rarely observed of large mammals in the park are the Roosevelt elk. And successful herds brought back from on the verge of extinction in the region are now common in the park area. It's also got tons of different bat species, including the big brown bat, as well as several other smaller mammals like minks, martens, red squirrels, northern flying squirrels, shrews, moles, gophers, and raccoon live in the parks, though they're not very frequently seen. Of course, there are several bird species. There are several endangered species. 28 species that are federally recognized as endangered, threatened, or candidates for production can be found here in these parks, including the national bird, the bald eagle, which is actually a seagull, by the way, the Chinook salmon, an historically intentional food for the indigenous residents, the northern spotted owl, and the Stellar sea lion are some of the threatened mammals. With several small animals. Along the coastline, you can find California sea lions, stellar sea lions, and harbor seals live near the shore in the sea stacks. While offshore, you may see dolphins and Pacific great whales. You have marine birds like brown pelicans, cormorants, sandpipers, gulls, and more. And of course, reptiles like the sea turtle can be found offshore on some of the beaches, as well as several amphibians too. And of course, even the banana slug is found here too. Of course, there's also over 200 exotic species living here as invasive species. And of these, 30 have been identified as invasive species, and 10 of the 30 are threats to the local species, mainly with plant species like spotted knapweed and poison hemlock. So yeah, pretty interesting stuff going on with the wildlife and stuff living here in the national and state parks. So we'll get through this area pretty well. So that concludes this leg of stuff and all the knowledge. So let's get back outside of our cockpit. Yeah, look at the views out here today. We have Super Typhon with us. He's flying with us. Always good to have him on board. One of my trusty mod. Get to fly with us. Mhm. So yeah, pretty cool stuff. We're about to get landing to our next first stop at 36 Sierra Happy Camp. We'll make a landing there. Oh. So we'll be arriving here pretty soon for our first leg. But definitely stunning scenery though, guys. Absolutely incredible. Mm. here we go. We're about to make our first land of the day. So we'll make our first landing here very soon. At Happy Cat Airport. Should not be that far. Should not be that far left to go. So we'll make a clean landing there. So we'll get down there pretty soon. Just going to descend like this. So here we go. We're going to make our first landing here of the day. We're just going to So here's Happy Camp. Our first stop of the day. An absolutely gorgeous airport to stop, obviously. Here we go. First stop of the day. So, parking brake on. And we'll be sitting out here for a bit. We made it to our first stop of the day here at Happy Camp Airport, right in the Pacific Ridge. So we'll be staying here for about a minute or two if anyone else wants to join in. We're on the Southeast Asia server. And here's our route for today. So we're going to go ahead and get ready for the second to last leg of the trip. So let's go ahead and get going here. So we're going to go ahead and climb all the way up to 7,000 feet for the first leg. So here we go. So let's go ahead and, as we climb to 7,000 feet, we'll talk about our final slides for today. So in terms of the geography of the park, in terms of the park geography and stuff, both the coastline and the California Coast Range can be found within park boundaries. The majority of the rocks here are part of the Franciscan assemblage, which dates back to around Jurassic and Cretaceous periods, along with marine and alluvial sedimentary deposits of the Quaternary and Quaternary periods. And these sedimentary rocks are mainly formed of sandstone, siltstone, and shale, with lesser amounts of chert, greenstone, and metamorphic rocks. Now, one of the most important things about this area is, of course, these parks are located within the most seismically active area in the country. Frequent minor earthquakes in the park and offshore in the Pacific Ocean have resulted in shifty river channels, landslides, and erosion of seaside cliffs. And that's because mainly the North American, Pacific, and Gorda plates are tectonic plates that all meet in the Mendocino Triple Junction just 100 miles southwest of the parks. During the 1990s, more than 9 magnitude 6.0 earthquakes occurred along with the fault zone, and most recently, a 6.4 magnitude earthquake in 2022 caused 2 deaths. In addition to earthquakes, this area is very tsunami prone. In the continental United States, and visitors at the seacoast are told to seek higher ground immediately after any significant earthquake. And the park ranges up to 2,700 feet in Rogers Peak, the tallest peak here in Redwoods National Park. So pretty important stuff to know about. It's very seismically active area, and this area is extremely seismically active. So something to keep in mind here while we're visiting the airport, of course, visiting the park. In terms of the climate and stuff, and in terms of all that here at the park, in terms of climate, the Redwoods National and State Parks have a warm summer Mediterranean climate. They receive abundant rain during most of the year, with a peak in winter and a decrease in June and September into 2 dry summer months. These parks are part of a temperate rainforest that runs along the western U.S. coast, and the nearby Pacific Ocean has had major effect on the climates, as temperatures near the coast remain between 40 and 6 degrees Fahrenheit all year. And redwoods tend to grow in this area of stay temperate climates. They'll most grow at least a mile or 2 from the coast to avoid the saltier air, and never grow more than 50 miles from it, as they both receive moisture from heavy winter rains and summer fog. In fact, the summer fog is more important to the health than the precipitation itself. Now, of course, parts of this park are threatened by climate change, as increasing temperatures have led to reduced water quality, affecting the fish and other fauna, and rising sea levels threaten to damage park structures along the coast. Now, redwoods will benefit from higher carbon levels and resisting against temperature changes, though scientists fear that climate change will shift the range where coastal redwoods live to outside protected areas. So that's something to keep in mind too as well. Hey, Planet Neutral, good to see you. We're visiting Redwood National State Parks. Thank you for the shout out, Super Typhon. We're going to be visiting this beautiful national park. We won't be doing any bushlands today, unlike some of the other stuff we've done here on the stream. But we will be checking out, though, of course, we'll be mainly doing some of our flying pretty low to the ground. But we'll do our flying pretty low to the ground, so we're going to probably descend into 2,500 feet above 2,000 feet, and then we'll climb up to 3,000 feet for the rest of the thing. So we're going to go ahead and set this for 2. We're going to try to go pretty low to the ground for the rest of this leg. So we're going to descend slowly 500 feet per minute, and we're going to descend pretty slowly through all of it. Oh, nice. Glad you had a great time at Redwoods. We're about to cover more of the slides here. And here's our last slide for today. Our last slide for the national park is recreation opportunity. Now, the parks have 5 different visitor centers where general information, maps, and souvenirs are available. Some of the centers even offer activities during the summer. And there's no entry fee to both the Redwood National and State Parks, though some areas require paid passes. Since the 2019 closure of the DeMartin Redwood Youth Hostel, there's no hotels or motels within the park boundaries, the closest being around the local areas to many of the towns, like Brookings, Oregon, and various California communities nearby. Now, hiking is the only way to reach the 7 backcountry camping areas, which requires a permit, and they're only allowed on designated sites, except on gravel bars along Redwood Creek that allow dispersed camping. Though you do have to have proper food storage to minimize encounters with bears. There's over 200 miles of hiking trails in the park, and throughout the years, the trails are often wet, and hikers need to be well prepared with rainy weather. Horseback riding and mountain biking are allowed on certain trails. Kayaking is permitted with Ranger Lake kayak tours during the summer, and they mainly travel through the Smith River, which is the longest undammed river remaining in California. And visitors can fish for salmon and trout in the Smith and Klamath rivers in beach areas to catch smelt and perch. But for those, you need to require a California sport fishing license to fish in any of these areas. So that's it, everyone. That's our slides for today. So if you want more information about the national park, here's the national park information from the national park website. I'll pin this up for the people in the chat if you guys want to check that out. I'll give it to you guys then. So that's it. So we're about to head to the California coast. But like I said, we have no bush lanes today. We're not going to be doing any of it today. It's all covered in forest, which would be very difficult. We'll take plenty of pictures along the way, but it'll be tough to land when we have a lot of forest cover. So, but yeah, the park has tons of things to do here. Pretty big park. So here we go, guys. We're about to get much closer. So here we are. The California coast is in the distance. Beautiful stuff here. For what I know, the California coast, the Pacific coast up here is absolutely gorgeous if you ever get a chance to fly along the coast. Especially around Oregon and all that, it's supposed to be really nice up there. So we're going to check that out once we get a little closer. So we'll take plenty of pictures when we get down there. So, beautiful stuff. The Pacific coast. We can see Crescent City. Not far away from here is Crescent City. Hmm. So here it is, guys. We're now finally getting ready to enter the Redwood State Park. So we're going to be pretty low to ground level, of course. Whoop. So here we go. Turn left soon, and we'll finally fly over the redwoods. So should be some pretty interesting flyover. So here we go. We're going to turn left very soon. So we're going to go ahead and so yeah, this is part of the Redwoods. This is part of Jedediah Smith Redwood State Park, by the way. This is one of the 4 state parks. This one is about 42 square kilometers. In 1929, and mainly the indigenous people that lived there was the Telawa people. They were the ones who lived around this area, and many of the descendants still live here around this region. And there's about 18 miles of trails and 100 campsites throughout the state park. So this is Jedediah Woods State Park. So you can still see the California coast to the right, Crescent City, and the California coast. So we're going to continue on this street for another 17 miles to our next waypoint in Klamath. Right around the Klamath River, of course. Um, mm, mm, mm. So, beautiful area, though. Really stunning area here in the sim. So, really nice place to fly, of course. We got the California coast and all that. So, we're about to hit Klamath, and we'll turn 163 degrees heading. We'll now enter into the national and state parks themselves. So, yeah, look at the scenery here, guys. This is nice. Lots of hills and stuff all over the place. Perfect places for the redwoods to grow. All this area is prime real estate. Mm. Mm. Yeah. Mm. Absolutely incredible. So we're now about to hit Klamath. So we've got some beautiful sights here at the coast. Of course, we're about to get closer to our national park. So we're getting to now fly over the national and state parks area. So we might be able to get some good view of the coast in our next leg. So we should get some absolutely gorgeous pictures. Yep, and so here we go. So this is the Klamath River. Connects us into the Pacific Ocean, of course. So here is the Klamath River. This area is beautiful, though. Like I said, we're still close to the water, and still now we can see the Pacific coast, actually. Here, so we can finally see the Pacific coast. So here's the Pacific coast and all that. We can see the Klamath River. Absolutely gorgeous place here, guys. This is absolutely gorgeous. Really nice to fly over, for sure. Like, yeah, it's kind of sad I'm not doing really in the bush lanes here today. It's just, this is one of the few parks where I don't think we really needed a bush land, honestly. There's like no real arches or anything like that to fly into. Yeah, look at the beautiful California coast. Look at the beaches here. Looks really, really cool. Cool beaches, of course. And this basically stretches down through the entirety of the California coastline, all the way across much of California. All these sandy beaches, cliffs. That's all over the California coast. There's so many of them around this area, of course. One, two, three, four, five, six, seven, eight. Took some pictures of the coast. I posted on my Discord if you guys want to check it out. I don't think the Discord link's accurate, but if you do want to check out, here's my Discord. So we're about to head to our last stop soon. Our next waypoint is going to be um, going through the last of the state parks, Humboldt Lagoon State Park. We're going through the rest of the national park, of course. which is this area here, is the last part of our national state parks. So we got one more waypoint after this. After this waypoint, we have one more left to go. So I hope you guys are enjoying this peaceful flight. Absolutely enjoyable. So California, of course, there's still one more California national park left to go. There's actually still, I think there's still a couple more California parks left to go. I think this was our 1, 2, 3, 4. It's our fifth of California's 9 national parks we still have to cover. The other California parks we still have to cover are Channel Islands, Death Valley, Joshua Tree, and Pinnacles. Are still the national parks in California we still have yet to cover on this series. So we're going to climb up to 3,000 feet for this one. We'll climb 3,000 for this one. We'll be a bit lower to the ground. Look at these pictures, though. That's really cool. What a beautiful snapshot of this. You can see the river flowing down this area. This river, by the way, is Redwood Creek. So this is all Redwood Creek, by the way, flowing down through here. And then to our right, we can see this is around Humboldt Lagoon State Park. Humboldt Lagoon State Park in the distance. So these are all lagoon areas. Mm. Mm. So here we go. We do have one more, and that concludes our National Park stream. We got one final pick left to go. Let's go ahead and make our way to the final airport. So here we go, guys. Our final stop. Kilo Alpha's Charlie Victor is going to be our last stop. So we'll descend here and we'll wrap up the stream, guys. This has been a very enjoyable flight. I hope you all have a great rest of the week. Yep. Here we go, guys. Our last stop of the day. So here it is, guys. We made it to our final stop here at Kilo Alpha Charlie Victor. I hope you all have a great rest of your stream. This was a very nice trip. Um, so I hope to see you all again soon. For our next game day flight, I'll let you guys know in the Discord where our next game day flight's going to be. But I think it's going to be probably, hopefully, be Germany versus France, which would be the round 16. So we'll be going through all of it as well. So I'll find someone to raid. We'll see you again soon, and I hope to see you all again on Friday. Have a great day, guys. See you soon.